me say yeah. Let me say yeah.
Welcome to the Cheap Seats Hockey Podcast. Kind of a long time coming. I'm Phil Stockley, and my co-host Jimmy Ward. We've been talking about this for a while, and finally took the plunge. So, Jimmy, why don't you introduce yourself to the people listening?
My name's Jimmy Ward. I've been a longtime friend of Phil. Been about what, 16 years?
I
Would
was
you say?
thinking about it. Yeah, it's been up there.
Yeah, I think we met in about 2005 or six,
6,
somewhere in there. Yeah, about
5.
2006. Yeah. So yeah, we've been longtime friends, and
And
obviously,
we're not good at math either, so it's probably
yeah. So if we say a guy's making 5 million, he's probably making seven. No big deal. No, it was just something we've been talking about for a long time. We obviously, this podcast is for everyone who just loves hockey and loves to talk about hockey and, shoot the stuff with their boys. And so we're here to kind of bring a little bit of that, just cover the NHL and whatever else. So, we're diving right into the deep end. We're right in the thick of trade season. So it's, you know, kind of a wild time to start a podcast, but we're gonna tackle it and see how it goes.
yeah, we
So,
figured if we don't do it now, it's probably never gonna happen. But just so people know, Jimmy is a huge New York Rangers fan,
absolutely.
and I myself am a huge Calgary Flames fan. And of all the places, we're based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So
Yeah.
I am in enemy
Enemy
territory, and yeah.
enemy territory for you. It's not so bad for me. Not a lot of people. I get a lot of Oiler fans kind of indifferent about the New York Rangers, so it's okay. I'm rocking the 99 hat for Gretzky. Uh,
Can't go wrong.
no, I can't go wrong. And obviously the New World Order, uh, greatest wrestling faction of all time, in
We
my
could talk
opinion. So,
wrestling too. Like,
well, that's a rabbit hole that I don't know if we want to go down. So,
well, not tonight,
um,
not tonight.
not tonight, but yeah, we
Maybe
kick.
if hockey slows down, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Those dog days in the off season. So, um, boy, your team's kind of in the center of things right now. Obviously, today the Chris was it today or yesterday? I feel like it's just
Yesterday,
been a whirlwind.
last night,
Yesterday, yeah, last night you texted me and said Tanev off to Dallas. They get a second round pick and a conditional third. I believe they sent a prospect. There was it was just Tanev and a prospect to the Dallas Stars, and then New Jersey had picked up a fourth in there. There was a third team, but
I think
yeah,
the goalie went to New Jersey. Like it was like a weird like three-way thing. So
yeah, there was New Jersey was definitely a team facilitating that, and so Dallas Stars get Chris Tanev. You guys get a prospect by the name of Artem Grishnikov. So I just want to ask you, like, how are you feeling about that? I mean, it's been a long time coming, right? So, what are
yeah,
your thoughts?
it's definitely tough as a Flames fan, and any hockey fan of any team knows what it's like when you lose a heart and soul guy. And Chris Tanev was definitely a guy. He went out there, like, literally put his face in front of hockey pucks and would pretty much do anything to win. And when you lose a guy like that, it's really hard. And it's but it's one of those things. An expiring contract has to be done, right? So um obviously I was kind of hoping for a first round pick in return, but maybe that's wishful thinking. um but it definitely, I hope it kind of, is the first domino to fall here for some trade activity. And especially with the Flames, because Hanafin's going next, and what's he fetch? Um, like I don't know, like are the Flames rebuilding? Are the Flames retooling? Like what do you think?
Well, it's interesting you mention. I mean, I respect Conroy for kind of holding out as long as he could. Obviously, he wanted that first round pick. Once it didn't come to fruition, like he didn't try to create a bidding war. I think what he got was about the best you were going to get for Chris Tanev. I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent. He's 32 years old, I believe. He wasn't in probably their long term plans. So the fact that they got a second round pick and they get back probably Dallas's fifth best prospect in their system. You know, Grishnikov's a guy who's a stay-at-home defenseman. Um, I think he'll end up being a pro, but he's probably 2-3 years down the road, and will be one of those guys who you can play alongside probably an offensive defenseman in that sense. So I don't mind the return for Calgary. I mean, Tanev's he's not a Norris Trophy defenseman, but he's a very good defenseman, and I think this trade works for both. I think he's going to fit like a glove on the Dallas Stars. If you look at Dallas's defense, they really wanted a second pairing right hand shot. I think Tanev was the perfect fit. It gives them a great second pair in Essel and Dell and Tanev, and then you got Heiskanen and Harley. They're able to move Suter down to the bottom pair with Hakanapaa. So I really like the makeup of that defense. I don't think they were comfortable with going in with Niels Lundqvist in their lineup, so he becomes the seventh. So I think it was good. I think it's just one of those ones where Dallas is going for it and they need a guy, and clearly Tanev wasn't in Calgary's future, so I think they got a decent enough return. Like probably not what they wished for, but I think it wasn't terrible in my opinion. So that's kind of where I sort of sit on it. But we have back to your question about rebuild or retool. I think it's a very complicated process because it's a huge risk to tear it down to the studs. But when I look at Calgary's lineup, I don't think it's possible to tear it down to the studs just based on some of the long-term contracts they have tied up in some older players. I think it would be very hard not only to trade those players, but to get particular value back and also sending those players to contending teams who don't really have a lot of cap space. So you're probably looking at a retool. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was actually thinking of the New York Rangers. It didn't seem like all that long ago when New York Rangers management put a letter out to their fans saying that they were going to do a rebuild, and I think things have kind of progressed pretty quick over there in New York. How does a team progress so quickly?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I guess it depends on how long you want your rebuild to be. Typically a retool, you're thinking 2-3 years, you're kind of back in the mix. A rebuild's anywhere from 5 to 7. Like you said, that letter was sent out in 2017, and it was kind of a weird way how it all kind of came together. That first draft, they end up drafting Elias Anderson 7 overall. Obviously, didn't pan out, but then later on in the first round, they get Filipino, who becomes a player in their lineup, even though he's gone for the season right now at this particular moment. They end up winning a lottery to get Capo Caco, who 5 years in he's made himself into a decent NHLer, but he hasn't come anywhere close to that 2 overall status, what most people thought he could be, especially that summer when he played at the World Championships against men and completely dominated. And he's had some injury problems and whatnot, so that's kind of been a weird one. But then you get like situations where Adam Fox, wills his way to the New York Rangers, basically force his way on.
The only team he'll play for, and another,
Yeah,
thanks
Calgary
Adam
trades him to
Fox as a
Carolina.
Calgary Flames fan. Yeah.
Yeah, probably it's something we don't talk about, Phil and I. But Fox, and then like he becomes a Norris Trophy candidate. So it's really hard to kind of project what you think these guys are going to be. Like Lafreniere is becoming. It looks like this year he's taking that step, and he was a first overall pick. You look at like when the Rangers traded Derek Brassard for Mika Zibanejad, right? Like just a slam dunk of a trade.
Loves
Uh,
Zibanejad.
right? And then
Yeah.
you get ones where they move Ryan Spooner to the Oilers. They get Ryan Strome, right? They trade Rick Nash for a second, and that second round picks, or they traded Rick Nash. They got Ryan Lindgren, right? Who's in their top pair now. So there's a number of ways you can sort of do it. And then they, obviously the one they started adding pieces around him, like they signed Artemi Panarin to a 5-year deal. They trade Neil Pionk to the Jets to get Jacob Trouba, right? So I think if the traditional just like tear it down, try and be as bad as possible and get as many picks and prospects as possible, I think you got to win a lot of trades. You got to do a lot of maneuvering. I think for young players, I think it's important to have veterans on the team to help sort of guide these guys along, right? Like I look at a guy like Keandre Miller, like he's got a mentor in Jacob True, has been his defense partner over the last couple of years. It also helps that you got to hit some home runs in the mid rounds. Like you look when Calgary drafted, oh gosh, what was it? They got Shillington, Rasmus Anderson, and
Rasmus Anderson
Majapani.
and Mangiapane, yeah,
Mangiapane all in the
late.
same draft, right? Or you look at the Dallas
Yeah,
Stars getting Ottinger, Robertson, like you got to hit some home runs. And I think for the Rangers, obviously, like it was the same thing. That same draft they drafted, I believe they drafted. It wasn't the same draft, maybe one before that, but 2013 they got Pavel Buchnevich, right, in the third round. Igor Shesterkin
yeah.
was a fourth round pick. Henrik Lundqvist was, I think he was in back when the draft seventh round pick, right? Like so. I think
How
you got to be
how
really
important are your scouts, right? How important are your scouts? How important is the draft?
well. I think your scouts
And
are. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and like, I as a Flames fan, like I look back to, and I was kind of talking to you a little bit about this, like about it this morning, like 2012, like we were kind of in the same position. Like Jay Feaster, I believe it's Jay Feaster was he loaded up on draft picks and he picks in the first round Sean Monahan, great first pick. He was great
Oh,
for
for
the
sure.
Calgary
Yeah,
Flames.
6 overall. Yeah.
And then later on, he gets Emile Poirier, which he never worked out, and Morgan Klimchuk, who never worked out. And it's like how many of those first round picks um are like absolute slam dunks and how many are kind of flops, right? So um it kind of feels a little similar this year. So I just feel like Craig Conroy, he has to it's got to be a slam dunk this year, and he's got to get guys that are going to help this team moving forward for sure. So and like guys that are going to play in the NHL. So but again, it's not like a guaranteed thing, right? So you look at like the Patrick Steppins and the Nail Yakupovs and players like that who should have been slam dunks, and for some reason they just didn't work out. So
Yeah, and it's really hard to throw all your eggs into a basket of 18-year-olds. Like, the Austin Matthews, the Connor Bedards, the Connor McDavids, like those are rare, right? Like they to come in the NHL and make such an impact like that. It's like it just doesn't it's not the norm. And I think those guys kind of ruined it for some of the guys after that, like coming up in those drafts. Because if you look at like Nathan McKinnon, like it took him a while to get going, right? Like
yeah,
guys, higher picks like like Mikko Rantanen, he wasn't a star right off the bat. Like Jamie Benn, guys like Tyler Seguin. I mean, he was traded from Boston, right? And then he didn't really start to flourish until he was in Dallas. And so I just think
yeah,
sometimes you got to be careful. And I know a lot of people like to compare it to Pittsburgh and Chicago, like with Kane and Taves and Crosby and Malkin, and just bottom out and get the best players. But you have to remember, like, if you look at those Pittsburgh and Chicago teams, like, Chicago drafts Kane and Taves, like they bring in guys like, they end up, obviously they had Keith and Seabrook, and they bring in Brian Campbell, they bring in Marion Hossa, right? They bring in veterans who've sort of been there, like, Crosby was living with Lemieux in his first year. And then you've got guys like Bill Guerin and Sergei Gonchar and, veterans. And I think that's the one thing I see Calgary has is they have some of that veteran presence in place to teach these guys how to be pros.
yeah,
And they're there for whether you like it or not, they're there for a very long time. I
yeah.
don't think, I mean, and if you're moving them, what are you moving them for? Like, what's your plan? Who are you building around?
They just probably go to Arizona where everybody else goes when they need to dump salary. So no, I've been and I'm like looking right now, like I like everybody's been kind of posting this on social media over the last 24 hours, but it's just like a list of since Craig Conroy took over. I think Craig Conroy's done a great job so far. And especially with like the Sharon Govich for Toffoli trade, like people are like, "Oh boy." But people in Calgary probably didn't even see Sharon Govich play very often because they don't watch the New Jersey Devil games, right? So he's got Craig Conroy has traded out Elias Lindholm, Tyler Toffoli, Nikita Zadorov, and Chris Tanev, and he's acquired from those four guys. He's gotten Sharon Govich, Andrei Kuzmenko, a 2024 first, a 2024 second, a 2023 third, a 2026 third, conditional 2026 third, a conditional 2024 fourth, 2024 fifth, Hunter Bruce Dewich. I don't know how to say his name. It's like really a weird name, but anyways, Grushnikov and Yoni Yermo. Not too sure on the prospects, but that's quite a lot for those four guys. So I think it's pretty
Right.
good
And like,
work so far. And then you got Hannafin, whatever he's going to bring back.
and I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean, they were put in such a tough spot when Gaudreau took off, right? And then
Yeah.
they trade Kachuk. They try to be competitive. They got back Mackenzie Weegar, who at the time he's a stud. Like he's a very good defenseman. And, Jonathan Huberdeau just came off what 110-point season. Like obviously it hasn't gone
Well,
well.
driving Lamborghinis in Florida to,
Yeah.
probably a Ford
And
F-150 in Calgary.
and you feel for a guy like that. Like I hope he finds his game. Like I think
Absolutely.
he's a great player, right? Like it's just kind of wild to me on that. I see when I look at Craig Conroy, I see a lot of similarities to Chris Drury. Like Chris Drury kind of came up with the Rangers. He was an assistant GM, and then he became the GM. I mean, his first trade was an absolute dud. He sent Pavel Buchnevich to the Blues, and we got back Sammy Blais, who I believe didn't score a goal. So I mean, the first year he blew out his knee, and the second year he didn't score a goal, and we trade him back to St. Louis in the Tarasenko deal. So I mean, you're not like I think those first couple trades. I feel like he's got a good handle on it now, just after seeing what he traded Tanev for. Hannafin's going to be kind of a complicated situation. Like, how do you see them handling that? Because he has an 8-team no trade, but he's kind of said, not a lot of teams want to give up a lot for a rental. I mean, Conroy could trade him to 23 other teams or whatever it is, but he's kind of narrowed it down. And what I've been reading from Twitter and stuff, like we don't have inside sources, we're all speculation, but Tampa, Florida, Boston kind of seem to be the teams that could possibly extend him. So what are your sort of expectations there?
Well, it's funny. I was listening to Jeff Merrick today on Calgary Flames radio, and he said that maybe Craig Conroy is looking for two firsts and a prospect for Noah Hannafin. And Eric Francis right away was like he believes it's one first round pick, a good prospect, and a serviceable player right now. I don't know. What are some of your what do you think Noah Hannafin pulls you on the trade market?
Well, like I said, the complicated issue is whatever team's going to give up a first is probably want to have a chance of extending him. So, probably if you're looking at Florida and Tampa and Boston, they don't have the assets to pay. So now you got to try and convince a team outside of those three that are purely going to get him for rental, because it sounds like, in the offseason, he's probably piecing out to one of those three teams, just as a free
Yeah.
agent that, hey, listen, like, who is someone outside of that in the Eastern Conference or even in the Western Conference that's close to winning a Stanley Cup that is willing to pay that sort of price? And for Conroy, he's going to have he's just in a really tough jam, I think. I don't think the return is going to be what he wants, but like I said, I think I heard Elliot Friedman or Darren Drager. I was watching Insider Trade, and they think that trade could come down to like Friday last minute,
Yeah.
just because I think Conroy's going to try and he's got it. Like that's probably his best trade chip. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
he's got a lot of time. I like what he did with Tanev. I'm sure he's going to get something. It might not be ideal, but for the position he's in, if it's even half decent, I mean, the guy's not coming back. So what
Great.
what do you expect, right?
Yeah,
It's a tough
and
situation.
I believe the Calgary Flames also said today that they are not trading Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah. Yeah,
yet.
I heard that as well.
Maybe it would
Mhm.
be a summertime deal, but I'm not sure. Also, I heard and again, we're not insiders. We're not
No.
we don't know anything really. We're just
Pure
just
speculation.
chatting. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I heard through a rumor mill that the Edmonton Oilers offered the Flames a first and Cody Ceci for Chris Tanev.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of that. Yeah, that's a no for me, dog. Because I mean, I mean, the first round pick, whatever you're, it's pretty much a second round pick, assuming that they're gonna go, depending how far they go in the playoffs. So really, I mean, what's the difference between
Yeah,
25 and
fair enough.
29? So, and you're also trading him. You know, there's probably a little bit of that. Like that'd be like the Rangers and Islanders making a deal. Like I don't, you know, I know they made the Lucic James Neal deal, but both guys wanted to get rid of their players, so it worked out. But I
Absolutely.
can't remember. I can't remember what was the other one, like Tobias Reeder. Like, you ain't gonna see a blockbuster between those two. I just don't ever see
What
it.
it was like Steve Stais too. He got traded between the Calgary Flames and the Oilers.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I don't. I
Vladislav
I'm
Schmid.
sure. Yeah, I don't know what the relationship is between Holland and Conroy, and you know, I obviously the fans, it's all a bloodbath. I'm sure with executives, it's and the players, it's not as bad, but yeah, I
Yeah.
just it's really it's really interesting.
And we will get to the Edmonton Oilers, but I do want to ask you, Jimmy, what do you think the New York Rangers need? What's on your wish list as a New York Rangers fan at the trade
Well,
deadline here?
it's really funny because typically a team that's fighting for the President's Trophy, you'd think they'd be all set, but yeah, we've got some needs for sure. You know, we've got a pretty much a gaping crater of a hole at right wing, top line right wing. We've always kind of had a revolving door there. Ever since he shipped out Buchnevich for Blay, we haven't really been able to find that sort of guy. And then when we did, you know, it's always been like a pending UFA. Like you know, the one year when we went to the conference finals, it was Frank Vetrano. He played on that line with Mika and Kreider, and then obviously he went off to Anaheim, and then it was just, you know, they've kind of wished that Kako would be that guy, but he's been there for stints. Like, you know, when Gerard Gallant was there, he didn't really want to play him there, and when he did, it'd be for a few games, and then he'd get hurt. So like he's kind of never really taken the ball and run with it when he's been up there. They brought in obviously Patrick Kane and Tarasenko, so they tried a combination of those guys. Tarasenko actually played quite well there. You know, Kane was on one leg basically, so you know, and they got bounced by the New Jersey Devils. Both those guys left. You know, they go out in the offseason again with the intention of Kako playing in that spot. They bring in Blake Wheeler. Kako gets hurt. Blake Wheeler goes up there. It's okay. Like, you know, they're getting by. I thought Wheeler was okay with those guys. And then Wheeler gets hurt for the season. And so they're just, I definitely a top six right winger. Obviously with Philip Hedl gone and they waived Nick Bonino, who basically just couldn't keep up anymore. They brought up a guy from Hartford. He was actually the captain in Hartford, Johnny Brodzinski. He's been great as their third line center. He's actually been playing with Will Cooley and Capo Caco on a regular basis. I feel like they really want to get a third line center there and move Brodzinski down to the fourth. You know, because right now that fourth line is Goodrow with those two twin towers, Rempe and Enstrom, who I don't, you know,
We
great.
got to
I think
talk about Rempe in a minute, but
we'll get to Rempe. Like they've, and you know, the funny thing is with Rempe and is, you know, his line mate Enstrom is 6'8". So he's 6'8", 230. Rempe's 6'7", 244. They've actually been playing okay as a fourth line. Like they can actually play hockey. They create havoc down low. But I really think like in the end, ideally on the fourth line, I think you'll want to see Goodrow, Brodzinski, Jimmy Vesey. I think they'll want to get a third line center to play with Capo and Cooley. They already got the line of Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere, who they moved. Actually, they converted him to a right winger this year because it was so bad. And I think they're just missing that right winger to play with Mika and Kreider. And there actually are a lot of options. I know that Larry Brooks, he's got a really big inside scoop, even though Drury likes to keep things tight to his chest.
yeah, John
Some of the
Tortorella's
name,
best buddy, eh?
yeah, John Torelli. I really like Larry Brooks. But yeah, he knows in the organization. They've been linked to everyone. I know Drury really likes bringing back players that played. Like obviously he acquired Tyler Mott twice. So they've been linked to, obviously, I know they had talked to Anaheim about getting both Adam Henrique and Frank Vetrano. I don't know if that is, I don't know if that will be accomplishable without giving up, because I know they have three prospects they absolutely don't want to trade, which is Gabe Perreault, who might be the steal of this last past draft, Brennan Othman, who's playing in Hartford right now, and Adam Sikora, who's a good second. I think he was second round pick of the Rangers. Those are kind of their top three prospects. They don't really want to touch those guys. They do have a defenseman, Zach Jones. He's 23. I think he's kind of their dangling chip. And one of the other rumors is with the NHL draft being at the Sphere in Vegas, that's actually owned by James Dolan. There were talks about not wanting to move that first round pick because he wants the Rangers to make the pick at his establishment that he owns. So, yeah, a little complicated trying to acquire a guy like that. Again, Tarasenko's another guy they looked at, but the problem there is they can't retain salary on Tarasenko because it hasn't been a full calendar year since he played for them.
Okay.
There were, yeah, I didn't even know about that rule. So that one gets kind of dicey because he's a $5 million cap hit. He would fit based on how much of the money is left, but it wouldn't leave them any room to address any other needs. Pavel Buchnevich was talked about. I know he's been linked to the Oilers as well. Obviously, a former Ranger. His line mates were Kreider and Zibanejad, so that would be just a fit. And I think one of the things you want to be careful with bringing guys in at this time is guys who can come in the locker room who guys know. And they know, like, so he would know pretty much everybody there. Same with Tarasenko, same with Vetrano. So I think he'll probably try and go that route. But if you're looking at a realistic option and you don't want to pay a lot, I'd really look at Anthony Duclair. He's had a bad year in San Jose. He's purely one-dimensional offense, and I think if you get him with a couple talented guys, like he can put numbers, put things in the back of the net.
Look at him in Florida, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like anywhere he's kind of gone, it's so funny. He's just jumped around, but he's done pretty good. Like offensively, he scored. He's 20 goal scorer, 25 goal scorer, right? So, but I guess for the third line center, I think Henrique might be a little too expensive for them. They've kicked tires on Alex Wenberg in Seattle. Probably a cheaper option might be like a Tyler Johnson out of Chicago. But I mean, they probably may want to add a depth defenseman unless they want to play Eric Gustafson in that sixth spot. But yeah, I think the big need is definitely third line center and right wing. I think Drury will definitely get someone in there. I just don't know. It really just depends on cost and retention, and you know how it goes, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Matt Rempe.
yeah, my boy Rempe.
Yeah, so he's just kind of become like a social media sensation here. He's who's he fought so far?
Well, I believe it was his first shift. He fought Matt Martin in the Stadium Series. Like, imagine this. He gets called up. It's the anniversary, I believe, of his dad's death. And he's playing in the Stadium Series against the New York Islanders, and he just squares off with Matt Martin. And, like, I mean, your first game, right? Rempe he was a 6th-round pick. He played for the Seattle Thunderbirds. He's actually a pretty good skater for his size. Like, a lot of guys that tall are kind of looks awkward at times, but he's got decent skating. He's kind of, like you said, he's a fourth line physical guy down in Hartford, and they brought him up. I don't know why they brought him up. I think they maybe wanted to get a look at some of these younger guys because they waived Bonino. They sent Tyler Pitlick down, who they signed in the offseason. I don't think they weren't too impressed, and they want to see if they could spark some energy into the lineup, because they brought Enstrom up at the same time, and he's an absolute mutant as well. So he fights Matt Martin. I think they play the Flyers in Philly, which is a pretty hostile place. He fights Delorier. He does really well.
Tough guy, hey, Delorier.
Yeah, and Delorier is a tough guy. And it was one of those ones where Delorier went to him warm up and said, "We're going," and what are you supposed to say, right? So he did, and then obviously he fights Olivier in Columbus. Olivier definitely got the best of him in that fight, which you're not going to win all the fights. So I think the Rangers, though, I think with Drury and Laviolette, I think they'll probably dial that fighting back. I don't think it's sustainable to fight a guy every night.
Does
It'll
he
be
fight Ryan Reeves on the weekend?
well, that's interesting. It's like I don't know. I mean, did you see his face? Like I don't know. I think it depends on whether, I'm sure he wants to, but I think if he doesn't, I'm pretty sure that's the Rangers saying, sorry, kid, like
Yeah, chill out.
you're not fighting him. I don't know what he gains from fighting Reeves, to be honest. Even though did you see Reeves the other night? Reeves actually looked pretty good the other night against Vegas. He scored a goal. He actually beat one of the defenders up the ice. So I'm sure Reeves will be in the lineup. I'm sure Rempe will be in the lineup. Probably could happen. I don't know if Reeves will force it, but you never know. It's something we'll be looking forward to. I'll be eyes glued to that game on Hockey Night in Canada for sure. So, um, yeah. Where do you want to go next? What do we want to touch on next?
Well,
Talk
you know,
talk a
we're
little Oilers.
yeah, well, we could finish up on the Oilers here. You see Dallas adding Chris Tanev. You see Vancouver adding Elias Lindholm. Um, what do the Oilers got to do here to like get going here and get a dance partner here for this last push into the playoffs here?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was a very weird year for the Oilers. Obviously, they started off not ideal. I mean, Jack Campbell really struggled in the beginning, and then Stuart Skinner struggled for a bit, and they really put themselves in a hole. I mean, when we were, doing the math, I was like, man, they're gonna have to go on quite the heater to even just get back into the picture. And then they win an almost NHL record worth of games, 16. And it's funny, you'd think if you were won 16 games in a row, you wouldn't be third in your division. Like that's how bad the hole
And they're still
was.
like a ways behind the Vancouver
Yeah,
Canucks.
yeah, and it's like just to give you an idea of how dire it was, and it's so they've got themselves back in it, and so one of the things I look at when a team's on a heater is or on a big major losing streak is you're never as bad as you think you are when you're losing, and I don't think you're as good as you think you are when you're winning. Not to take anything away from the win streak, but off the top of my head, I believe 10 of the 16 were against non-playoff teams. And, that's not their fault. I mean, the schedule is the schedule, right?
You
But
got to
and
take
they did
advantage
what
of those. You got to take advantage of those games. Like you look at the Calgary Flames,
Mhm.
like they've lost games to the Chicago Blackhawks, the San Jose Sharks,
Yep.
and they're on the outside looking in, probably not making the playoffs this year. So, every team is in the NHL and every player is in the NHL for a reason. They're good hockey players, right? So,
Like imagine that's a 7 game winning streak. You know what I mean? Like that's or an 8 game winning streak. Like that's a 16-point swing. So kudos to them for digging themselves out of an absolute hole and getting back into the playoff mix. Now, in terms of what they need, obviously they added Corey Perry, which I thought was a nice pickup. But when I'm looking at the Edmonton Oilers right now, I think again one of the problems, same problem the New York Rangers. They need a right winger. Um, you know, they need a guy who's going to be able to shove sort of Corey Perry and Janmark down the lineup a bit. I think at center ice they're good. I like Ryan McLeod as their third line center. I don't even know who's playing fourth line center for them right now. Oh, Sam Gagne. So Sam Gagne's
yeah.
there. He's a great vet, great guy. And the thing is that you probably want to move CC down. Um, I don't think CC in your second pair is a good idea especially if you're trying to go up against. They're probably gonna have to play the Golden Knights in the first round. Maybe the Dallas Stars if they fall into a wild card spot, right? So you're playing Dallas or Vegas in the first round. Like you've got quite the first round matchup. So I honestly think a middle pair defenseman, someone who's better than CC. So whoever that might be, one a guy that I was, Arizona's trying to move Matt Dumba. You know, is he better than Cody Ceci? I think so, or at least in that range, right? And
Yeah.
then if you're acquiring a defenseman, you got to ask yourself the question like, there's got to be money coming out if you're trying to add multiple pieces because they're kind of up against the cap. I know they have 2.3 million right now of deadline space, but they only have 21 on their roster, and like you're a few injuries away from that being from call ups and that not being sustainable. So, I honestly think the ideal one, because they'll be able to get retention. I think, I know they've been talking about Buchnevich, but I think Tarasenko would be a nice fit. Uh, he's got plethora of playoff experience. I think he's got 44 playoff goals in like however many games he's played, which is like almost a
Stanley
half
Cup
a goal a
champion
game.
as well.
The Stanley Cup champ. He's had a good year. He's playing well 5-on-5 on both ends of the ice. And right now he's kind of on that third line in Ottawa right now. He's sort of a guy I'd look at, for the defenseman. I don't know. I really don't know what middle pair defensemen are sort of available out there that would be an upgrade on CC. Matt Dumba was just kind of the one that came to mind because I don't think he's going to cost you a lot. I know Arizona's looking for a first round pick, but they're seriously out to lunch if they think they're getting a first for Dumba. Like, this isn't 5 years ago, right? Like, um, and then I know that a lot of them are screaming for a goalie like Marc-Andre Fleury or whatever, but if you acquire Fleury again, like you're eating up. You don't have the money unless you move guys out. Now, if I'm the Oilers and I got to move someone out, I think unfortunately a cap casualty is probably Warren Fogle. He makes 2.7, and you could move Holloway up on that third left wing spot, and I think he'd be completely fine. I think Fogel's had a great year, so they probably get, maybe they get a fourth line guy in return to kind of fill the hole where Holloway was. So I really look at that. I know they've had chemistry problems with Draisaitl and Kane. And then like down the middle, right? Like if you have Hopkins and McDavid, you can move Draisaitl to the wing, and Kane's kind of been up and down between the second and third line. I haven't really found a kind of home for him yet. And yeah, I just think like I definitely think a top six forward and a middle six defenseman. If I'm a fan of the Oilers, I'd feel a lot better if those came through about my chances to go punch for punch against. I mean, because Dallas and Vegas are complete. And with $9 million of space that the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be active because yeah, so they're going to do something with that $9 million to acquire a player. They got a lot of players injured right now. Obviously, Jack Eichel's on his way back. I think they're looking mid-March for him to come back. Stone's obviously out for the rest of the regular season, so they'll have that cap relief. And Will Carrier's out. Like they have a lot of injuries right now, so they'll definitely be adding. And I think by the time the playoffs come around, they're going to be a handful, and that's
Yeah,
going to be a
Stone will
heavy.
be miraculously healed again for game one of the playoffs.
I saw someone use that meme on Twitter, the Undertaker, at the end of the
Or the
regular
one
season.
where I like the one where Kevin Nash in the wheelchair where he just gets up.
I I mean,
There we
what are
go. I
your
told
thoughts?
you we talk wrestling, bud.
Yeah, we did. Kevin Nash was an intriguing member of the NWO too. So, what are your thoughts on LTIR? Like,
Before we go to that, I just want to touch on the Oilers and
yeah. Oh,
um
right. Sorry. Yeah.
no, it's all good. We don't we are based out of Edmonton. We have a lot of friends who are Oilers fans, so you know, though if the Oilers did well and, as much as it pains me to say did win a Stanley Cup, it would make a lot of my friends and family happy. So that would probably make me happy. But um so that's really hard for me to say, but and I
Mhm.
don't want to come on here and bash the Oilers and hate on the Oilers and um
No, of course not.
so yeah, we want to be honest and give our honest opinions on them. So but yeah, I just look at like the Dallas Stars loading up and like I said, the Canucks loading up. Um yeah, you got to do something. And I was talking to my brothers and they want to come on the podcast here one of the days talk Oilers because my brothers are big
Beauty.
Oilers fans and I'm lucky they
Hmm.
haven't disowned me for being a Flames fan. But anyways, they were just saying today, same thing as you, like they need a top six forward and
Yeah.
I think it's like if they could just do anything, like that's what it would be. So hopefully like sleepy Ken Holland gets up and starts getting on the phone. Like I don't know, maybe they cut the phone off to his office in Rogers Place there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what are you waiting for? Like, you have a first round pick. Like, mind you, the Oilers don't have the greatest prospect pool. I think I read something the other day. They're probably ranked 25th out of 32 in terms of prospects, but you got a first. You've got Philip Broberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Xavier Bergot hasn't had the greatest season in the AHL, but he's a guy with some promise. You got Savoy, you got, Rodrigue. Like, if you think you're close, then sure, you're trading away guys that probably will be good NHL players down the road. But as a fan, Phil, like, would you not deal some future pain to win a Stanley Cup
Well, and
as a
that's just the
fan?
thing. Like yeah, and it's hard because like you're not sitting in that office trying to make phone calls, trying to make deals, trying to make money work, trying to make players who want to come here, want to go out of here, and like you look at Tyson Berry for Ekholm last year. I think that was the best trade of the trade deadline last year. Best trade of the season last year was the Ekholm for Tyson Berry trade, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It just bolstered that blue line. But then you look at a guy like Tyson Berry. You think he wanted to leave the situation he's in Edmonton? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day,
Well,
it's a business, right?
it's tough and it's a business, and I think they're going to have to do a similar thing with Warren Fogle. Like, you look at, to make room for the $6 million of Ekholm, they had to trade Puljujärvi to Carolina, and they had to include Tyson Berry, who he was. I don't think they wanted to trade him. I think they really liked him, and he quarterbacked that power play for a while, but then they looked at Evan Bouchard, and obviously he's taken a massive step, and somebody who's going to get paid down the road. Like, you got to look at that too. Like, you got Bouchard making under $4 million right now. Like, I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but his next contract is north of 9 a year, right? You're gonna have to
Absolutely.
extend dry.
And
You're gonna have to extend Drysaitel, who I
and we
think
were talking
really.
about this the other night. Like what did
Mhm.
we kind of come to the conclusion he's going to be making? 12 and
Oh,
a half, 13?
well, we don't know it. I think it's Predator. Like, a lot of people look at the comparable Pasternak, who's making I think he's making 11 something, 11.5, right? Panarin's in that range. He's making 11. But the thing I
Yeah.
think they're really gonna watch is Elias Pettersson, right? Like, he's getting ready to sign an extension, and I've heard Vancouver's gonna just back up the Brinks truck. But it's a little complicated there because they can't really get him to the table, I've heard. And I mean, they're offering the moon on, and anywhere they're saying we'll do anything, a 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever you want. Like,
Wouldn't
so I think
you?
the Oilers are well. I guess to live in Vancouver, you need all the money you can get.
Yeah, no
So
doubt. He can pay a year of rent.
I don't see, man. If you're making that kind of money, I'd love to play in Vancouver. Like, it's beautiful, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I mean, those are the only people that can live there anyway. So, what do you like? What do you think? Like, I mean, are you on board? Like, I really think the Oilers should go. I mean, this is it. Like, you've got Hyman on an unbelievable. He might be on the best
Even
contract. He's like 40 goals.
Drysaitl's on a good
Yeah, eight and a
contract.
half. McDavid, like, they're getting good value. Yeah, maybe you don't want to talk about Nurse and Jack Campbell, but I mean, we
Everybody has
don't.
bad contracts, though.
Everybody has those and whatever. So, um, I just think that I don't care, man. Like, empty the cupboard. Like,
Absolutely. And
this
and
is it.
it's
It
that's it. Like what do you think the Oilers window is here to win a Stanley Cup?
oh, it's
Bob Stauffer
it.
always says though, as long as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are here, the window's open. Do you agree with that?
I To an extent, I think Connor McDavid is probably the best player I've ever seen, like, in my lifetime. I know a lot of people talk about Gretzky and the records and whatever, but like, just I've never seen a player like him where he can, like, every time he's on the ice, like, you are like, as a Ranger fan, when they play the Oilers and he's on the ice, like, I'm on pins and needles thinking he could score every shift. Like, he's that good. But I think what that does sometimes is it, like, you think that you don't need, it's almost like he's so good that he carries, like, they don't feel like, oh, we don't need to get this guy or that guy because we got McDavid, right? So it's just like, I think you just have to treat it as, we really need to shore up those other areas so that you become basically unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because as the team stands right now, could the Oilers win the Stanley Cup? It's possible. But I don't like my chances in the Western Conference. That Western Conference is it's hell.
Yeah.
You've got Vancouver, who I think, obviously their PDO numbers have changed a bit and you could see a drop off. I mean, we
They've
knew
lost
Vancouver was
again
going to,
tonight, by the way, 5-1 to the
yeah, like
LA
they were
Kings.
they were running like a PDO high. Um, so at the beginning of the season, so they were going to tail off. I mean, that's the
It was
analytics says,
unsustainable for sure.
yeah, not sustainable, but they're still a very good team, and they got Thatcher Demko in net, and Quinn Hughes is having a Norris Trophy season, and everything's clicking, right? Shooting percentage at an all-time high everywhere. You know, um, the Winnipeg Jets with Connor Hellebuck, and then they had Sean Monahan, and they got Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and Josh Morrissey's a top end defenseman. They're a
Colorado
nice looking,
Avalanche.
yeah. And who's to say with the Colorado Avalanche? I mean, they're 2 years removed from winning the Stanley Cup. Um, they got some work to do as well. The Vegas Golden Knights, when they get healthy, the Dallas Stars, in my opinion, to me, the Dallas Stars, I think, are my favorite in the Western Conference right now. They were before they got Chris Tanev, and now they get Chris Tanev, and they might have the deepest forward group in all of the NHL. And they got a good mix of veterans and youth, and
And
guys have been there.
Mr. Ottinger in net there, he's a pretty good goalie
Oh
too.
man, oh, if he ever gets back to that form when he played the Calgary Flames there, like it was like I couldn't believe what I was watching, right? That same goes for the, like, we talk about, teams in the East. Like, I could tell you all day what the Rangers need, but if Igor Shesterkin plays 930 hockey, look out. Like,
And he can.
it's hard to, he can. And he had a weird season. He was 8.99 before the All-Star break, and then after the break, he's going at about a 940, 945 right now. He's been outstanding, but so if I'm, again, like, do you want to take that chance? And then there goes another year, because I think, like you said, I think it gets complicated when you have to start giving out extensions. Like, sure, you'll keep Draisaitl. Obviously there'll be guys that come off the books, and then that money gets allocated around, but there's no guarantees. Like, I feel like I think the next 2 years is their best window. I don't want to say that it's like closed, because like a lot can happen in 2 years,
Yeah.
right? Like, just look at Calgary, right? They go from, you know, game 7 win in Dallas to play the Oilers.
Winning the Western
Um,
Conference that year.
yeah, and to just, you know, kind of a roller coaster of emotions for fans, right? So I think when you
Oh
you
yeah.
feel it, if you feel like you can win the Stanley Cup, and it's, I mean, you got to go for it.
You empty the
That's
cupboards. Yeah, you empty the
that's
cupboards
that's yeah.
to make your team better, right? And like, and it you've seen it already. Like last night with the Chris Tanev trade, and tonight there was another
Hmm.
trade, by the way, Jimmy, tonight. Labushkin went back to Toronto. Both of these trades, they had to involve another team to make the money work. So
Hmm.
that's just the thing, if you got to bring in another team and maybe lose like a fourth or a fifth round pick or like whatever, like who cares, right? Make your
Yeah,
team
because
better tomorrow than it is today. And if you're in
I
the window
haven't,
to win, why wouldn't you?
yeah, like I haven't looked to see what the Oilers have for picks, but I'm pretty sure they have their first round picks for the next 3 years. And I think they have at least any seconds in there. Like, I don't know what they've given up. I know they gave up quite a bit to get Nick Bukestad. It was a little bit of an overpay last last season. I don't know if you can bring that up, but
Yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll see what the Oilers have. Just finish that thought and I'll let you know here in a sec.
yeah, like I was saying, I think out of the teams that are searching, like I talked about Tampa and Florida, like they just don't have the assets, right? So like it'd be great. Yeah, Noah Hannafin's like, yeah, I want to go there, but okay, cool. Conroy goes, yeah, well, I know Florida traded a bunch of them away, a couple in the Claude Giroux deal and whatever else, right? I'd have to really look back at some of that stuff. I need to bring up my computer next podcast
Yeah, no,
to
they do
take a
have their
look.
first round pick in 24, 25, 26. They don't have their 2025 second round pick. They don't have their 2024 third, fourth, or seventh. And they
Yeah,
do have
so
an
I
extra
mean,
sixth round pick this season too. So
but I think that's going to be a problem for the teams that are selling. Is like they want all these picks, but nobody has them. They're all in Arizona.
with
I
the
I'll always pick on the Arizona Coyotes. I think that organization's just wild. Like, have you seen their defense? They don't have a defenseman under contract next year. They have some. I think it's like two RFAs and the rest are UFAs. Like they're always open for business. I feel like they're that team that helps the NHL by making sure these trades go through so they can retain salary.
well, why do you think they why do yeah, why do you think they've been around so long?
Oh my gosh, I don't get it. And I
Gary
feel for
Bettman
like
protects them.
and if you look at them, I mean I mean they've got like so many prospects and
But
it's like it's rinse and
even
repeat.
players on the team that are young right now, like you got Clayton Keller, stud,
Oh, he's a
like
stud, yeah.
Lawson Krause, awesome. Logan Cooley is going to be good. Dylan Gunther is going to be good. Like,
Barrett Hayton, who's hurt right now, he was starting to come around.
yeah,
You know, I'm not quite, Vamelka, is he still in net for them? I don't even know who's playing net for them right now. Connor Ingram, I believe, right? I mean, it's hard to tune into a Coyotes game, I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
When you're
Vamelka
sitting
and
there,
Ingram are their goalies.
yeah. Yeah, so the thing is I just feel like Arizona, I don't know if they ever have a plan. You know what I mean? I mean, you can look at most teams and think, well, at least they have a plan,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Anyways, yeah, we're
Labushkin,
all over the place here. Sorry, guys, but
yeah, yeah.
that's how me and Jimmy work. I hope you like it.
Well, let's admit it. Like I'm autistic, and that's just a fact, right? So you can when I get kind of nervous, which I am a little bit on the pod, I'll talk fast, and sometimes my mind goes in 50 different directions. So, definitely gonna have to live and learn and through experience, and you'll have to guide me, Phil.
Yeah,
So if you
I'm
notice
no
that,
pro either. So
yeah. Go back to Labushkin. I think we talked about that. What are your thoughts on that deal? I think they
let's
give
see
up a
what the
third. Because there was
yeah
another team in there.
yeah I believe the maybe Carolina Hurricanes were involved in it too
Yeah, they ended up
to make the
getting
money
a pick.
work.
I think it was a six round
Yes.
pick goes to the Canes, right?
Yeah, so they acquired Labushkin. The cap hits only 687.5 with a double retention. Um, so yeah, so he goes to Toronto. Brad Tree Living, he missed out on Chris Tanev. Not that Labushkin's a comparable really, but I don't know. How did you
No.
describe him to me earlier today?
Uh, he's a defensive defenseman who he can break cycles, but he's a physical, he blocks shots, but he's someone who, he gets beat off the rush a lot. And I, fine. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't move the needle for me in any direction in terms of like, okay, we got Labushkin, so now we're solidifying
Ready
stuff.
for
Like
to win the cup? Yeah.
I think he's a bottom pair defenseman. I mean, is Geo hurt? Like, I don't know what the situation is. Toronto. I know they had
I
Simone Benoit
believe.
was playing.
Yeah, Mark Giordano. I know his father passed away, unfortunately, unexpectedly
Oh, I didn't
last
actually
week.
know that. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's why he isn't playing, but
I thought he was injured, but
he might be
I know
injured too. I'm not
I know
sure,
for
but
Liljegren's out right now, so they are missing some players. So I guess that
yeah, those guys
maybe
aren't
a
on
little bit,
IR right now, but you
yeah,
know,
little bit of I guess some patchwork for
yeah,
now.
for sure.
You
But
got
that's the problem with the NHL though, right? Like it's a money in, money out league.
mhm.
So, if the Toronto Maple Leafs want to do anything here, they're gonna have to find some cap space, some room, and just like the Oilers, right? Just like find a team that can take some money off the books. Like we said earlier, like every team's got bad contracts. So I don't know. We'll have to see
What
and jump on here after the trade deadline for sure and talk about some of the trades. But
Yeah, what do you think? We're recording kind of late Thursday night here, so this episode will be up tomorrow, which will be Friday. Most of you guys will be listening. I think we'll probably jump on again Wednesday, a couple days before the deadline. I think these next couple episodes are just going to be a lot of trade speculation. There'll probably be a lot happen over the weekend, I'm guessing, and we'll have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and people could be
Uh,
like, these two guys are dummies.
well, hey, it's our first time, man. I mean, we're just trying to grind away at it, and I'm having a lot of fun. Like, I just love talking hockey, whether my opinions are good or bad. I mean, that's the best part about it. I mean, coming on, talking to friends, and everyone's got opinions, right? And it just makes it a lot of fun. Like, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Like,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
if you guys have opinions, like by all means, we have a Instagram account, we have an X
yeah.
account. Do we have a Facebook account?
No, no Facebook. So we're on X. So I'll probably put those in the I'll probably outline those in the you'll be able to see them on the display once I go to produce it.
Yeah, reach out on X, Instagram. If you want to be like mean to us and vulgar, go on the X account because I take care of that, and Jimmy's son actually takes care of the Instagram account. So don't be swearing at
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, please don't. Also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell here on YouTube. That'd be great. And if you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow as well. You'll be able to get the audio and video version of this podcast. And I don't
On
know, Phil.
YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
YouTube.
check out
Yep.
our. We'll have links to everything in our social medias too.
Yeah.
So
We're not experts on this, so it might be a little bit of patchwork to start, but if you listen all the way through, greatly appreciate it. I hope you guys tune in some more. Phil, you got any final
yeah.
thoughts?
Well, that's why we had to talk about the Oilers like last, so everyone would like stay tuned. You know,
Yeah, save the good stuff
they
for last, eh?
they can hit that fast forward button to when we talk Oilers, but
Perfect.
no, it's good. I'm really excited to do this with you, and it's yeah, it's gonna be fun, and like we're always open to having guests on and people who maybe
For sure.
if you're out there and you're an Arizona Coyotes fan for some reason, hit us up and we'll get you on the podcast.
I haven't met one yet.
I actually I think there might be one on my boys team,
I'd love to talk
a
Coyotes.
U9
I
team.
will. Yeah, all right. If they want to talk Coyotes, we'll have Coyotes on here.
Yeah, we should talk about
Cool.
that quick too. I have two boys who play minor hockey, so
Yeah,
you might hear me talk about that once in a while.
yeah,
My oldest boy, he's U11. We play
yeah,
out of New Sarepta because we're out in rural Alberta. And
yeah.
my U11 boy, he's playing for gold this weekend in Pinoak. He
That's
against Pinoak. They do a home and home and like a combined score. So we'll see.
that's
We'll see how
awesome.
he does. And then my other boy plays U9 out in New Sarepta. They still got a little ways to go here, like another 3 weeks of hockey with him, and then their season's all done. And I believe your boy also plays hockey, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, he's playing U15. He plays for Northwest Zone, and their playoffs are just getting started here at the beginning of March, and then he'll transition over to minor ball hockey after that. So, you have two kids. I got three kids. We're a busy group, so yeah, it's great just to get this time to just hang out too. So
Absolutely.
much
And you can ask
much
us
appreciated.
questions and anything you want. But thanks for tuning in, and
Yeah.
we'll see you in a couple days.
Cheers.